And salutations, I'm Gil.
And I'm Gil, and this is Strategic Prepper. All right, welcome to another Strategic Prepper video. It's 2022, or about to be 2022.
No, this is now 2022.
Is it? Okay.
We're filming at the Christmas Day, right? So, all right.
Yeah, so it's that time of the year again. We did this last year, but it's time to reassess the threats or what our concerns are going to be for the coming year. If you saw last year's that we did for 2021, I think we were pretty accurate. I think
Unfortunately.
Yeah, we're getting pretty good at this. I'd rather be really bad at this.
I'd rather suck.
Yeah. So yeah. So heck, let's jump into it. It's a good thing to do every year. Things change. It's in line with our continual assessment process, really.
Yeah, it absolutely is. But you said you didn't use prediction, right? You used concerns.
Yeah, it's not a prediction. Did I say prediction?
No, you didn't.
Yeah, no.
So I just want to explain. We're not predicting saying this will happen. We are doing what we always tell you to do. We look at the signs, we look at the trends, and we say things are moving in this direction, and here's our evidence for that.
Yeah.
It's not a prediction per se. Like some economists will say, we expect inflation to be 7%. We're not doing that. We're just, here's the trends that we see based on, so we're talking near term.
You look at the data you got right now and what your concerns are, and then in 6 months or 3 months or whatever, the data changes and then your concerns shift too.
Right.
So let's go ahead and get into it.
Sure.
I've got the list on my phone here. So electricity shortages, right? And this is a topic the grid itself has been a topic of concern for a while, at least a decade, probably longer, right? So you were telling me about an article you read.
Yeah, so I'm going to link that article. Telecom people, particularly I think CEO from Foxconn, has predicted that in 22, not 25, 2030, or this coming year, this year here, that we're going to see electricity shortages in the U.S. And it gets into why and all that. And this is a guy that power is his business, and so it's a pretty good article. Like I said, I'm going to link it. That's something that those in the prepping community always talk about. Yeah, that's our dogs. Ignore them. They're happy to be here. We always talk about, what if there's power shortage? A lot of people talk about EMP, right?
Yeah.
Well, what if there's a series of brownouts? Now, you guys from California. All right, give us the comments. Let us know how you deal with it, because you guys have had this before. The rest of us have stayed in the modern era and have had continuous electricity.
Free America.
If you're outside of the United States in an area that has had rolling brownouts or blackouts, let us know what you have done. This is a concern that the experts are saying is likely to be a real deal in 2022. As preppers, what do we do? What are some things that you and I have?
Yeah, you start looking at alternative power.
Well, what's the first thing you do, even before you get to setting up your solar and wind and all?
We do an assessment
as far as
on
power.
where you're at.
Get a generator.
Oh yeah.
First thing, if you don't have a generator, get a generator. That's the easy one.
Yeah.
We always talk about
learn how to store fuel. And all that.
Yeah, we always talk about gear, knowledge, and skills, and we focus a lot on knowledge and skills. That's a gear one. Go get the gear, buy it, boom.
Yeah, the power issues largely the gear.
Right.
It's mostly gear. A little bit of knowledge on how to run and size your gear. Yeah, I mean, it's something you think about. Your electricity use is going up, especially with the increase of electric cars and just other stuff in general. The power grid is decaying. You know, people in the Department of Energy have been warning about decaying power grid for a long time. A lot of the equipment is at or past its expected service life. They're not manufactured in the U.S. I mean, this is, for those of you guys that have been in the game for a while, we know this is coming. It's pretty inevitable. Right. At this point, I don't even know if there's any way to actually save the grid, so to speak.
But the difference here, yes, we've all known it's coming, but the difference is a leader in the industry has come out and said, 22, he has made a prediction, whereas we talk about trends, he's made a prediction this year, 2022, you're going to see failures. And that, I thought, was noteworthy enough for us to bring to you guys, our subscribers. And we want to thank you for subscribing. You made last year a great year, by the way. Oh my gosh, we went from 0 to 2,300, something like that. Yeah. So I'd love to double that at least in 22. So please share. But anyway, that's a little side note.
And along with that too, I would imagine you're going to see increased energy costs. Right? There's not enough electricity to go around, then it's going to cost more to use it.
That's basic supply and demand, right?
Yeah.
If you've got a shortage of the supply, price goes up.
And then fuel's already going up, so all energy is probably going to go up.
Yeah.
And then food and everything. That's a whole nother discussion. But
yeah, so recheck your plan, recheck your equipment, your preps, and make sure that you have a plan for rolling blackouts for several days at a time, for high gasoline prices. And I would say, if it's all possible, move beyond the generator. You started to talk about other options. Yeah,
solar's a big one. Shoot, any of you guys live in the mountains, if you can get hydro, I would, if you're in the mountains, I would push towards hydro first. That's alternative energy. So how can I produce energy and how can I get away with not needing energy? I think that would be the two parts of the scale you're trying to balance.
Changing light bulbs to LEDs is one example of reducing
your draw on the system.
Yeah.
And I mean just reducing your need for, if you can do something without power, because if your town has no power, then it doesn't matter how efficient your bulbs are. Now, if everyone is more efficient, then it's a reduced draw on the system, less chance.
But it does make your solar or whatever more efficient.
Yes.
If you're drawing less.
And I started solar, get a solar generator, and then I'm going to work on a storage unit that I'm going to build that's climate controlled, solar powered, and then I'm going to do a partial house system that hopefully I can build and design myself. Unfortunately, we did another video on this year's resolutions. The large solar is not in my 2022 plan. I don't have the bandwidth for that. I got other more pressing needs. So.
Yeah, well, you got to pick and choose. We can't do it
hopefully
all. We all have shortages of resources.
But the food and water and a lot of other stuff is higher on the list for obvious reasons. Food and water.
Right.
So, I'd start there. But like you said, he's predicting it's going to happen. And the other thing to remember,
so I'd take it serious.
Yeah, the other thing to remember too is if it doesn't happen in 2022, the threat doesn't go away. The situation is going to gradually get worse.
Right.
So.
Exactly. Yeah. Just because his timing may have been off, or might be off, doesn't negate the seriousness of what he's saying. Yeah. All right. What else?
Next one, checkbooks. So we got the compliance checkbooks.
Compliance checkbooks. You know what we're talking about. We're going to call them compliance checkbook and the compliance.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about here. All right, y'all know. Okay.
So
avoid algorithm hell. Okay.
Yeah. European country, right? You were saying.
European minister. So one of the things we talk about is when it comes to compliance. Once you open up the door and you get into that road, this is a concern that people have mentioned. Once you're in that world and you've started down that path, you're really stuck. It's like accepting to have, and I'm, don't get me wrong, I'm not judging anyone who goes with compliance. That's a personal decision.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is I'm talking about the risks.
Yeah, these are considerations you have to make when you make that decision.
Right.
Yeah.
So in Europe, people that have chosen the compliance, and then the government makes another compliance requirement.
Yeah.
And they turned off the checkbooks. Boom, you didn't act fast enough to comply. Yeah. Boom, you need to hop. When we say jump, you need to be in the air. Yep. You did. Boom.
Yeah.
You're turned off. Off.
Yep.
That's it. You're turned off.
Yeah.
Because it's all electronic.
And even with the OSHA's emergency mandate,
compliance mandate.
Yeah, when you look at that, because that's one that a lot of people I know are figuring out how to deal with that if it goes through. So I think Supreme Court's going to make a ruling on that. But so one of the things is people say, well, you could, a suggestion I've seen out there is people say, well, you could just get a pseudo checkbook and turn it in. How are they going to know? And one of the counter arguments to that is really on a moral basis. But hey, the reason why these things happen is because everyone goes along, nobody stands up. And so that'd be things. Well, once you do that, you're not really complying, but you're acting like you're complying. They think you're complying. That's just a real.
That reinforces them and
exactly,
what they're doing,
and it contributes to the problem. So it's something to think about. But yeah, once you give them an inch, they're going to take 50 miles.
So here's a problem, and this actually doesn't take any genius to see that compliance checkbooks and compliance in general is going to be an issue for 22.
It's gonna be a shooting.
There's no special
Next
knowledge.
5 years at a minimum, I'd say.
A blind man can see this. All right?
Yeah.
But we're just taking a couple of specific aspects. This was one of them.
Yeah.
The other one.
Oh, yep.
The other one. This is we talk about in the prepping community. We see this in the novels, in the movies. FEMA camps.
The camps.
The camps.
Internment camps.
Internment camps, right? So I've got an article that I'm going to link talking about New York State working on this, moving towards this. You were reminding me about what?
Australia's already doing this.
Already doing this.
There are voluntary internment camps that the police come and grab you, and then if you leave, they grab you again and arrest you.
Yep.
The U.S. has already done. We did this in World War II. We rounded up U.S. citizens and put them in internment camps. We've done this. The U.S. has done this for medical issues before. And I thought it was early 1900s. I've read articles. I can't remember.
Hey,
but we've rounded people up and put them in camps before, illegally.
How about the first Americans, the Native Americans?
Oh.
I mean, we rounded them up, put them on reservations.
Okay, well, yeah,
for your own safety.
Yeah, well, when you start wars with us too, that's a whole other issue.
That is.
They're not. It's not as clear cut as people make it seem. All right.
No, but I'm just talking about the concept is not foreign to the American government.
No, we've done this. We have done this. Other developed, civilized countries are doing this right now. So
Yes.
This is not.
It's not
anyone who
far-fetched.
laughs it off and just.
It's not crazy.
Yeah, no, it's a reality.
And you can't laugh it off unless you just want to be blind.
Yeah, if you don't
And
want
then
to
you
face.
wonder,
Yeah,
why
reality.
am I here? Well, it's not because Gil and Gil didn't tell you about it.
Yeah, we told you.
No, we're telling you. Other people are telling you. So, but that is a
You said
creeping concern.
Yeah. So one of the states. Or you said New York
New York
State.
State, my home state.
Well,
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, pay attention. The politicians, they're getting more aggressive with this.
Yes.
The idea is that basically, if you don't do what they want, they're going to cut you out of society completely. No job, no food, no health care. Maybe they take your kids away, all that kind of stuff.
So let me tell you, when we look back at examples, we're not trying to be provocative. We're trying to learn from history. I'm going to give you a couple of different examples here in fairly recent history. And like I said, not to be provocative. And no example is an exact duplicate of the current situation.
Now you got to look at the general concept of what's going on.
So it's not that we're trying to say, if I go to Nazi Germany, we're not trying to say, oh, these people are Nazis. That's your own call that you have to make. That's not the purpose of this.
Yeah.
The purpose is to understand how people operate, how governments operate, and how they abuse their power. I am going to go to Nazi Germany first. Some of you guys just turned this off. That's all right. Other people will stick with us. All right. Nazi Germany with the Jews. Mm-hmm. They went to isolate them. Mm-hmm. We know that they restricted their guns. They restricted their private ownership. They made sure they had a mark on them, the Star of David. And they separated, isolated them. And at some point they moved them to the camps. And after a while they were no longer a problem because people didn't see them.
Yep.
But they separated a group. And that's how that government allowed themselves to be in power. Right,
Yep.
is by having us versus them. We see this
That's how the
whether
Soviets did
whether
it.
it is the compliance.
Yep.
I can do that when I say whether it's the compliance, whether it's CRT, whether there's a number of things.
Well, and it's
non-binary, swimming, whatever.
What? Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that these people, they want to divide us, keep us going after each other, and that allows them to control. Another tool, thinking about history a little bit more recently, this is East Germany. For those of you who are younger, check your maps. There used to be an East and West Germany back in the days. But East Germany, one of the tools that the government would do is they would have school assignments. Tell us about your day, right? It's to the kids. Mm-hmm. Tell us about your day. What time did you do this? What time did you do that? What time did you do this? Sounds innocent, right? In that school assignment, with the tell us about your day, what time did you watch television? Why was that important? Well, in East Germany, television ran a certain time, and West Germany, which was illegal for those under communist rule to watch, had television at a different time. Mm. So the kid is doing this assignment. Nothing sounds bad, right? I would watch, my family went and watched TV from 8 to 10 p.m. Well, that's not East German television. And all of a sudden, I can't remember what the East German secret police were called, but government shows up at the door, and boom, family gets taken away. We're going to see that type of stuff at some point.
Yeah, and you talk about history. That's why it's important. You read about how, communists take over, whether it's Germany, whether it's Ukraine, whatever, the Soviet Union. It's the same pattern every time. Once you read about it a few times, it's pretty easy to see what's happening.
How many of your family members don't like the checkbook? Well, my dad doesn't like the checkbook. Knock, knock, Mr. Dad.
Oh yeah.
We'd like to talk to you.
Yeah, it's any kind of totalitarian government. It's really the same pattern. And like you talk about, before you could erase a part of the population, you have to separate them from everybody else, and then you have to make them. You have to demonize them. The Turks did this with the Armenians. I mean, it's everybody, right? Of course, they deny it happened. Whatever. They're not our allies, but it's a different subject.
Yeah, let's not go there today. That's a different subject there.
It annoys me. It's what's happening now, and you could say, oh, that's not going to happen here. You have to understand the patterns. This is what happens when these governments do this, and we are seeing the same patterns. Draw the conclusions that you want from that, but that is reality.
I have to say, for those of you who might be listening, if one of you guys listen, who think these things cannot happen in America, I'm going to propose this to you, and not to be mean or anything. I'm going to propose that you just don't understand human nature, human history. You don't understand the nature of those that gravitate towards the bureaucracy, towards governments. And it's nothing new to the United States. It's nothing new to the modern world. It has been like this throughout all of human history. Certain people gravitate towards these jobs, and power wants more power. And there's been innumerable amounts of studies to validate what we are saying to you. If you think it can't happen in the United States, that is just a misunderstanding of basic human nature and history.
And this is why it's a good idea to study or have some understanding of genocides in general, like Rwandan genocide. Go read about the Rwandan genocide. Another good book would be like the Gulag Archipelago is a good one too. But you start reading about these events that have happened in recent history. It's anyway. I don't want to get sidetracked into the nature of this.
All right, what else you got?
Let's see. Inflation.
All right.
Which at this point, you've kind of already figured this out on your own.
That's right.
Okay.
But the question is not whether there's inflation. All right. That's like saying, did the sun come up? I see it.
Why is my cereal box 20% more expensive? Why is my meat 20% more expensive? Why is my gasoline 100% more expensive?
In fact, this month, and I say this month based on the video coming out in January, this month Kellogg, I think it's Kellogg, is going to raise their cereal price 20%. Just this month alone.
Yeah.
All right. What we're talking about is that the so-called experts, the so-called elites, have been telling us that this is temporary, and we've been telling you.
We have a video. We told you guys that was not true.
It's not going to happen. We've got a couple of different videos, but one in particular. One thing we want to bring up is one of the European bank leaders, European Central Bank, has finally admitted that it's not going to be as temporary as they thought. And I think from the U.S. Federal Reserve, I think they've kind of hinted that might be a little
well, and they talked about, what did they talk about? Easing off their buying of bonds and whatnot, which is going to drive up interest rates. It's pretty much signaling that they're not hiding it anymore.
This inflation, here's the thing. You get outside the government. Get outside of government sources, mainstream media sources, the whole elite system. Get outside of them and listen to multiple people who have been in the field, who have a track record of being accurate. And these guys, if you're not well versed in how in macroeconomics, these men and women will tell you that basically the things that it takes to control inflation are not in place. The things that are required to drive inflation are in place, and there's no change in sight.
Yep.
So why would inflation stop if we're not doing the things to stop inflation?
It's not magic.
No, because the leaders said so. How delusional are they?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, so we just want to share that with you, just in case you are getting information from other sources.
Yep.
We want to encourage you to look elsewhere. There's so many people out there that have got good information, but I encourage you guys, as I encourage you, get away from the government sources. Have multiple people. Don't tie yourself to any one person for anything. I mean, that's just not wise. You become end up becoming a cult leader, if they're right most of the time.
Yeah.
You know, but you want to get your information from multiple sources. All right.
Let's see. Last one here: gun restrictions, and this is a good one.
All right. This is the one I put on the list.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for this. We got the Supreme Court hearing some gun cases. They'll be all right. They'll be all right. That's the dogs again, enjoying the 80-degree Christmas weather that we've got here in South Louisiana. Anyway, gun control. Supreme Court is listening to a case, and it sounds like they're going to make a very favorable decision for gun rights. And there's many people who are like, oh, yes. So many of you, yeah, we're trying to keep the dogs off. So many of you are watching the Supreme Court, and we know that the Supreme Court has been hearing a case, and they've had oral arguments on gun control, particularly in New York State. All right, so yeah, we're laughing because we've been fighting with these dogs. They're just so noisy, but they're inside now. So Supreme Court and gun control. It's looking like on that New York case at the Supreme Court, and we're saying looking like based on the questions, that they're going to issue a very favorable ruling. So a lot of people in our community, by that I'm talking about our readiness community, self-reliance community, are breathing a sigh of relief, and I've even heard people say things are trending towards more gun freedom and all this, right? They're saying that it may be in the short term, but there's a couple of things I just want to share with you. It really doesn't matter what the long term, and by long term, we're not even talking that long, a few years.
Yeah.
Right? A few years. So long term on guns. I don't think whatever the Supreme Court does is going to be a permanent solution. And here's why. There's two forces at work. I'm going to get with the education forces first. The education system overall is so in alignment against gun rights that it's going to breed a whole generation of people, or a couple of generations, that will end up voting for restrictions. Okay, so I think that's going to happen. That's kind of a longer term thing. But the big thing is people talk about the Second Amendment. And I'm going to ask you guys, in fact, I'm going to put it on the screen. I'm going to put this portion of the Constitution on the screen in just a bit here. But people talk about the Second Amendment. All right, and the Second Amendment protects us, and the Supreme Court's going to rule on the Second Amendment. But here's the thing about the Constitution. If we have a treaty, all right, and I'm thinking right now about the UN Small Arms Treaty, but don't get all up in arms and say, oh, we have exceptions in the UN Small Arms Treaty.
Could be anything. Yeah, could be.
It doesn't mean there can't be an amendment, you know? Treaties get amended all the time. Could be a new treaty. My point is, the Constitution itself says the Constitution and treaties are the supreme law of the land. Okay? So we have the Constitution, but does the Constitution trump? No pun intended. Does it trump the treaties? Which trumps, the Constitution or the treaties? I do think that the treaty, if there's a treaty specifically limiting small arms to us, or any other liberty,
yeah,
right? Compliance issues, right? Checkbook issues.
Yep.
And if there's a treaty,
global warming
issues.
Yeah, they are gonna. Yeah, they're gonna terminate your civil rights based off of global warming, or
based on a treaty.
It is gonna happen. Yeah.
And what's the Supreme Court? They're gonna say originalist. We're an originalist, and I'm gonna pull up my Constitution, and I'm gonna go to this section right here. Boom, there it is. I'm going to this section right here, and oh, the treaty is equal to the Constitution in the supreme law of the land. Which one was done most recently? That's the most modern, up to date. So, boom, treaty takes the most recent change takes preeminence, just like the most recent amendment takes preeminence. You have an amendment to change part of the Constitution. That amendment takes precedence because it is the more recent, update. The treaty being the more recent update would take preeminence, and boom, But my Second Amendment, it could be moved or not, and I use that as an example.
It'll be a moot point.
It'll be a moot point.
And
it'll be legal. That's the thing. It will be legal and it will be constitutional, and that is a concern that I have. Not necessarily in 22, although I think that they are moving forward to continue to line this up. But I do think that's a longer term or stretch concern that we need to be concerned with. So things like that, liberty, it might be in something related other than guns. There might be some type of treaty, right?
And the other thing too, is you talked about studying totalitarian governments. This is a little bit an aside to this, but also at some point, it won't matter what the law says or the Constitution says. At some point, you're going to get to the point where the laws don't matter and the courts are kangaroo courts and they just do whatever they want. It doesn't matter. So we don't even need to get to that point, which we probably get to that point first before what I'm talking about. But when communists take over, basically, they just do whatever they want. When we're heading in that direction, it doesn't matter what the Constitution says. It doesn't matter. You saw this in 2020 with all the different restrictions. A lot of them are illegal. Did it matter? No. Your friendly neighborhood police officer still, took people to jail over nothing.
Right.
So people need to expect that. You need to expect that.
Yeah, that's in many countries.
And the right generally talks about being, we're pro-Constitution and pro-law and all that, and they don't even understand what they're talking about because, like you said, just like Germany, the Soviet Union, the Ukraine, right, Nazi Germany, when they were murdering millions of people, China, North Korea, they were all done legally. All within the accordance of their law, 100% legal.
Remember, Hitler was elected.
Yeah, he was.
He was elected by the people. And
you vote. What did it say? What's the saying? You can vote your way into socialism, but you have to shoot your way out.
Yeah,
that's how all this stuff started.
And what's Stalin say? Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how people vote. It matters who counts the vote.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
One of the senior people in the government recently said something very similar. That should scare you. And I won't name names because I will be deleted. And then if I go to YT hell, then you can't hear the message. So, but we do. We ought to put something like this on Patreon.
Yeah, Patreon would be that'd be the place to do it.
Yeah, I think we'll have to put something with a little more detail on Patreon. Anyway, those are our big concerns that we see for 22, and there's some pretty big ones. Some of these are more outward trend, longer trends, but they're moving in that direction in 22. Couple of ones. So let's kind of recap. Electricity shortages. The industry leader said you're going to see it this year, 22. Compliance and checkbook restrictions increasing one way or another. What else? The camps, I don't know that we're going to actually see them in 22. It's possible, but these people are certainly building more of the framework to make it happen. So I don't know that would be...
One thing I think we have to mention, too, is if you read FEMA's strategies for dealing with outbreaks, this is part of their strategy. It's not like conspiracy. It's not hidden. It's on their website. This is part of their playbook on how to handle this kind of situation. It's not unusual at all, actually. And then the other one being...
If there were a real threat, that might actually make sense.
Yeah.
Like the bubonic plague. We're just going to go into history to keep from YouTube hell.
Yeah.
The bubonic plague, half the population dying. That might have been a case for some things like that.
Yeah.
But I remember communist Cuba did that during the AIDS virus. Just rounded up people. You got AIDS, you go to the camps, and that's how they dealt with it. That's how governments do. What else we got?
Inflation.
Inflation. It's not going away. Yeah. Even the people who tried to hide it are now starting to say it's not going away. Prepare your finances for it. Yeah. One of the things that means for us is if you're saving for something, your savings may not increase as fast as the cost. So keep that in mind in your decision making.
Yeah, trying to balance getting out of debt and converting my dollars into actual assets, things that I need, that I can afford now that I may not be able to afford in 5 years.
Yeah, not going to debt. We don't want you going into debt. That's bad.
And then last one being increasing gun restrictions.
Or other civil liberties.
Yeah.
Or other civil liberties.
And it may not come the way that you traditionally think it might come.
Yeah.
So expect the unexpected.
Yeah, and there's several forces at work right now for this. So, all right.
I think pretty much covers it.
It did, yeah. That's a whole lot for 22. We're not trying to scare you guys. We do talk to people in our community that just get afraid. We don't want you to be afraid. You know who should be afraid? The people who don't watch channels like this, the people who don't take steps.
Yeah.
We take steps. We shouldn't be afraid. We should be confident that we're seeing risks and we're acting on those risks. You know, it's like seeing a risk for a fire and you buy fire insurance. Maybe you can't prevent the fire, but if it happens, you're not going to be totally wiped out, right? And your neighbor doesn't understand that there's a fire risk and their house burns down, that total loss.
Yeah.
Well, devastating. You're not.
You know, even thinking of maybe your family's got a history of heart disease, and you're like, man, I got a pretty good chance to get a heart attack. Well, some people will just ignore it, and I'll live life, and whatever happens, happens. And some people will eat somewhat healthy and work out a decent amount. You know, maybe they're not crazy about it, but the risk is there regardless of whether or not you act on it. But that guy who's taking steps to help him or herself is going to fare better, you know, and he's got a little bit more peace of mind than knowing that he's doing something about it.
So we want to give you information. We want to equip you with information. Information is power. And hopefully that you can take those steps, reassess where you're at, reassess your current situation, and make some steps. If you want some specific guidance, we do that. You know, we do consulting for individual readiness or group readiness. So we've done some of that quite successfully already.
Yeah. And
we can help you guys with that as well. So leave us a comment if you got comments. Also, give us a holler if there's anything we can do to help you. And I hope you guys have a fantastic year 2022. And
stay safe and stay prepared.
Right on.